Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 459. This is your guide to the geek side, and I am Todd Oxtra from the emerging frost of Minnesota, joined by Charlie Carden. He said he wouldn't talk about weather, Carden.
Damn it! And what's funny is we did Code 47 before I recorded this, and we started talking about the weather because it was me and Aaron and Jen Watson. Jen lives in Chicago, and both Jen and I overslept today, which is why we got a late start doing it. And she's like, it's cold. And I'm like, you know what? It is cold. And then we started talking about the weather. And at the end of it, I said, you know, this is the wrong show to be talking about weather, because Todd and I do that because we're old, and old people like to talk about the weather. Anyway, yes, it is also starting to defrost here. So we're getting a warm snap in the next 2 weeks. So I have these huge icicles hanging off my house, so watch out as those come careening down. Ah! Yikes.
Quick catch.
Anyway, quick catch. Oh, man. But yeah, no, I'm excited to jump in here. Todd's going to give me a litmus test in a minute here when it comes to our cover of the week, but I don't want to spoil it before I talk about paying the bills, which is paying homage or homage, if you prefer, to the wonderful folks who support us via patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. It's that spot where we produce a lot of fun extra content. And we would love to have you give us a check out. If you visit that website, you can get a free week and listen to our fun shows. I do a show called The Facts of Geek Life, where we talk about a classic series and a season and a few episodes, and we have a good time. Todd, you've got some projects as well. Mark has too. And we overall just have a blast. So on the Friends with Benefits level, Johnson Dorf, the awesome Phoenix Sisters cosplay, Kelly was on with us last week, Brendan Myers, the Asian Sith Mistress, Corey in HD, and Matthew Keel over on the BFS level, the awesome Nias family of the Twin Cities, Sean, Stella, and Henry, and my friend Missy Merchant. We are very grateful for all of you. Again, if you're listening to the show, want to see what all the fuss is about, if there is in fact a fuss, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, free 1 week trial. And we hope to see you there. And if you like what you hear, feel free to stick around. All right, it's quiz time.
Yes. So, Charlie, this week's cover, and we got this covered, is G.I. Joe 59. And if you've listened to this podcast, Charlie is a G.I. Joe aficionado. He has read more G.I. Joe than I think anyone ever. I think more than Larry Hama. I think you've beat him out.
Yeah,
now.
I did. When I met him 4 years ago, I said, look, old man.
I know more about this than you do.
I do, and I will be honest, Larry Hama, about 10, 12 years ago, picked up his pencil again, and he started writing G.I. Joe again. They renumbered it 156 because this Marvel series that we were talking about ended at 155, and he just kept it moving. I don't know how he dealt with the fact that 20 years had gone by, whatever. But now that same numbering is coming. Issue 302 just came out. 303 just came out this week. I haven't read it yet, but I can tell you what's going on here.
I want to give you my take on this without knowing anything about it. Okay. So this cover, I'm going to describe it because I have no clue what's happening. I was well out of G.I. Joe by this point. So we've got a couple of Joes in this, I don't know what we call it, like a turret that's at the top of a mountain. Then you've got I'm going to call this, I think that's the trouble bubble. I could be wrong. Maybe not.
Not correct.
So it's a thing that looks like maybe pogo legs that Cobra Commander in a bad suit.
It is called the Pogo. You're absolutely correct.
Okay, perfect. I'm great. I'm batting 100.
And again, it's an acronym standing for something, and I would have to look it up.
Pogo Operational Gadget. Oh no.
Oh yeah. Oopsie.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there you go.
All pogos. And then so they're shooting at the Joes on this mountain, and then you've got Hawk from Buck Rogers.
Yep, that's the guy.
Shooting at them. Yeah, with these wings. He kind of looks weird. He's got some other Hawks hanging out, and that's all that's happening. I don't know why.
Okay, here's the thing. Almost nothing on this cover is representative of what happens inside. Apart from the characters. We do have all these characters. Essentially what's going on here, this is issue 59. In issue 52, The Cobra finally discovered G.I. Joe's secret headquarters. There was a huge shootout, and it was called the Pit. The Pit was destroyed and collapsed. Cobra Commander and Destro trapped under all this rebel, but they survived. They escaped using honest to God, a secret escape drill that tunneled under, and it got them to freedom. And Cobra Commander subsequently stumbles on his catatonic son, there's his son Billy, whole big history there, but decides, I'm going to turn my life around, kidnaps his catatonic son from the hospital, drives off to Denver, Colorado, where one of his undercover CGs, or Fred series, the Crimson Guardsman, was located, and begins his life again as Cobra Commander in this crazy armor with this crazy piece of tech. Fred's companion in this is the dude in the bird suit called Raptor, and he is the Cobra bird trainer. All right. On the Joe side, the Joes are traveling in a convo with a couple of new Joes, including Tunnel Rat, who is the dude in the green that you see pictured here. And out back, the guy in the white shirt, in the front of his shirt just says survival. He's a survivalist, and Tunnel Rat is the EOD, the explosive ordnance disposal guy. They do have this turret thing, but it actually is on wheels. It never ends up at the top of a mountain. Raptor never pulls out a gun and starts shooting. And if you look at the angle vectors of this, nobody is hitting anybody. Because if you look at where everybody's pointed, it's a typical G.I. Joe that you can shoot. It's like the stormtroopers. You can shoot.
They're literally like 10 feet away.
Exactly. So you couldn't miss, but they missed. So like I said, nothing on this cover is representative of what happens inside. Cobra Commander is in this pod thing, and he attacks the convoy, but is not successful. And then at the end of it, they just go off their separate ways, and the story is set to continue. But nobody dies, and really there's no interaction except, like I said, Cobra Commander in the pod attacks the G.I. Joe convoy, but everybody escapes unscathed. That's the story.
Okay, so that's Charlie's remembrance of when he read it. I will tell you the summary.
Years ago, yeah.
I will tell you the summary from yojo.com.
Yes.
Billy has a new leg thanks to Fred 7, and Cobra Commander has his new battle armor suit. Raptor uses his trained hawks, this is the best part, and accounting skills to find a group of Joes that are testing gear in Colorado. Billy is slowly remembering things, including his training with Storm Shadow, and meets the Blind Master and Jinx.
I don't know that all happens in the same issue, but I guess it must. I mean, the thing is, G.I. Joe was very episodic, or it was very arc driven. So there's really just a lot of very ongoing storyline. Yeah, Billy was Cobra Commander's son, and he tried to kill him. Storm Shadow was not going to let Billy be executed, so he saved him. That's when Storm Shadow left Cobra. And the two of them were a pair, but then Billy leaves to confront his dad, but ends up in a terrible accident where he loses a leg and an eye and is in a coma. And that's when Cobra Commander finds him, brings him back. He gets a robot leg from Fred 7, and yada, yada, yada.
Okay, so what you left out initially was the leg. So you've revised that, so that's good. Mm-hmm. And then you left out the accounting skills. So I think those are the really two important parts.
I think so. Well, and if you Raptors, and thank God, with the, and I'm looking right at it, my collection of the G.I. Joe Classified series, Todd and I have talked about this before, I have a very hard line that stops at the 1985 series, because when you get into the 86 and 87 series, the line? Todd and I were listening to a great one-hit wonder by a dude named Rocky Burnett called Towing the Line.
Just watch the video, folks.
Google it and find it on YouTube. You will not be disappointed. But anyway, yeah, I because when you get to the 86, 87, and 88 lines on and up, which this is the 87 series, the shit is just too bizarre for me. And so I don't need a Raptor figure. I might get Cobra Commander that armor, because that was pretty dope. But, they don't produce a lot of vehicles. But again, a lot of the non-traditional, because you got the same year you had Raptor, you also had a guy who was a hypnotist called Crystal Ball, who was patterned after Stephen King. There was just a lot of weird, and then you get into the Eco Warriors and you get into the Space Command.
That's when it truly got to its golden age. We know that. The
last 5 years of G.I. Joe from 89 to 94, just skip it, please. Pretty please. There was, because again, there was the Sunbow Deke series in 85 and 86. They did G.I. Joe the movie in 87, and then in 1990-91 there was another 2-season cartoon, and that was the last time G.I. Joe was ever on television. It was 30 years gone by.
Wasn't it Extreme? Wasn't that on? There were some shows on the USA Network and things like that.
maybe that Resolute was one. Didn't you say that was okay?
That Resolute was on like Cartoon Network one night,
right? So it was, yeah. And I think I have a disc. Maybe you gave it to me, or I finally decided, hey, I better pick this up because it'll probably go extinct.
What I saw of that was very good.
Yeah, gotcha. So anyway, yeah, that's G.I. Joe 59. So the series was still really readable, even with this weird stuff, through at least issue, I'm going to say, 115 or so, the Death in the Desert, where you finally had some Joes get killed on a mission. That was really a big deal. But poor Larry Hama, I think he was really pinched to be like, sorry, Larry, we're coming up this weird shit. You got to work it into the comic. And he was probably like,
no, those are all real things that happened during his military time, Charlie.
Oh, in Vietnam, they had Eco Warriors and Star Command in Vietnam.
All legit.
Okay.
Really
all
legit.
Right, very good. Oh my God. Well, speaking of really legit, and again, if you'd like to learn more about G.I. Joe, as Todd mentioned, please visit yojo.com. Or if you'd like to talk to me about G.I. Joe, hit us up on our Discord or over on Threads or Instagram. I'm C3 Carpenter, which I usually mention at the end of the show. But anyway, speaking about completely legit, our honestly very legitimate source of news would be our senior news correspondent at 124 years young, down at the corner of Hollywood and Vine, giving out the hottest scoops, talking about Madam Webb with our news. Let's go for it.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's rumors and news. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. Madam Webb, you should be excited. It's big football weekend coming up. Unfortunately, you didn't get to be a cheerleader this year, but, put your application in. I'm sure they're looking for a senior, diversity seniors. You can break out your old beaver skin, your beaver skin outfit, your pom-poms made out of straw, and you'll be there with the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, I don't think so. All right. So what do we got going on here? You're throwing some stuff at me that's like, it's a video game. What's going on?
Yeah. So the first set of news is Sony has been trying to develop their video game properties into feature films and TV series. We've already seen that with Uncharted, Last of Us, Twisted Metal. We are getting God of War. We're getting other ones, Horizon Until Dawn, or Horizon Zero Dawn. But now we're getting one of their games from the PS4 era called Until Dawn being made into a movie from David F. Sandberg and Gary Dauberman. So
Andy Sandberg? Oh, yeah, exactly. Lonely Island. I love it.
The fun part is David F. Sandberg is known recently for the Shazam films, but before that,
which were fun movies. I like that.
Yeah, before that, though, he did a lot of horror films, and which is kind of interesting. People thought he was interesting that he would do, because he did, Sandberg made horror shorts in Sweden. His feature debut was Lights Out, and then he did Annabelle Creation. So
we do enjoy those movies.
Yeah. So
Annabelle, why do you have to be so evil? You're already so not creepy looking.
Yeah. So Until Dawn is one of those video games that are essentially like choice based, and it's basically
your own adventure.
Yeah, kind of like that. Basically, it's got a group of teens going up to this house for the weekend in the middle of nowhere, which is always a bad idea.
Yep. Great pick. Good idea. Do it.
Exactly. And so through it all, then there you find out there's something that's stalking them and killing them. And all through it is the goal is to get as many of these people to survive. So you'll play each character through certain pieces of it. And you have to make decisions. If you stumble in the wrong place, you try to hide and you breathe too loud, you could get killed.
I hate when that happens.
And I love the game, but the cool part is, Charlie, the game actually had a lot of actors in it. It had Rami Malek in it.
Oh, nice.
It also had, trying to remember the girl from Heroes,
Hayden Panettiere.
She was in there, and a few other actors as well. And they've been really good about the people that make this game. Been really good with capturing actors and likenesses. And it's one of my favorite games on PlayStation. Really fun, so it works well for a horror film. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Gotcha. Who's the killer? What happened? Will you survive until dawn? Is essentially the premise. So,
gotcha. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I can get down with this. And again, that game is now 10 years old. Okay, so it's a game that's been out for
exactly.
A bit. So, well, that's fun. Yeah, I'd be down with that. So anyway, something going in production. We'll see probably 2 years from now. So, well, even though I guess we found the horror stuff is a little quicker turnaround
because they
fast,
they
don't really have to deal with and then we've got to spend $50 gajillion on CGI.
No, they can go to Vancouver. get one of those like resorts that are abandoned, and then get a guy in a suit.
Yes. Let me go to my abandoned resorts guy, and we'll get this knocked out.
Yeah, exactly. There's like literally a billion of those in Vancouver.
So many in Vancouver. They call it abandoned warehouse and mansion of the Pacific Ocean. The Pacific
they're all haunted.
Northwest. Probably haunted. All right. So, okay. So now you're in my wheelhouse with this next one. And I will admit to you, it looks awesome. And but I'm not going to buy a PlayStation to play
I have a solution for you, Charlie. I have a solution.
Well, I mean, I have a solution too, but let's hear yours first.
Okay. So Xbox had their developer direct, and they were going to highlight 4 games, and one of those games was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is a horrible name, but you know,
don't say, at least it's not the Circle Jerk of Destiny or something. Trying to put this together.
Exactly. It's kind of weird. So they showed this game. It's made by Machine Games. Machine Games is a fantastic studio.
They said it's made by a machine. It's the first AI video game. What's he doing now?
Exactly. But they made the Wolfenstein series, which the Wolfenstein series is set in like World War II, taking on Nazis. So they're really well done.
Use all the same background. Probably use a lot of the same sets. I mean, because I know sets are a thing in video games because they have to have an environment that they put somebody in.
Exactly. And Wolfenstein is one of the oldest franchises in video games, and people thought, well, how do you make that game good? And you give it to a good team. So Indiana Jones really hasn't been in video games in a long time. I think the last game was...
The Fate of Atlantis or something?
It was a game that was on... I think it was called the Apocalypse Engine or something like that, but it was on the Wii era. So it was the Wii era.
Why does so many of Indiana Jones's things sound like Mad Libs? Indiana Jones and the blank of blank blank.
Uh-oh, Charlie, you uncovered their secret. It's like the Family Guy.
Yeah. The dartboard.
Yeah.
The random.
Remember that time? Yeah. So Machine Games is making this Indiana Jones game. We didn't know anything really about this. Well, they gave us a trailer. It was almost 3.5 minutes long. We found out it's going to be a first person action adventure. You can use your whip, you can use your gun, puzzle solving. Essentially, you're taking on bad guys again. And this game is set. I believe the chronology is what they said. It's going to come between Raiders and The Last Crusade.
I was trying to figure that out, which is just a 2-year gap. Because, Raiders was 36, and Last Crusade was in 38, and Temple Doom was in 35, because it was a prequel, which some people know, some people don't. Yeah. But my solution is a lot easier. I will simply watch the cutscenes movie, which is what I do with every other video game story, because it, I know, Todd, you enjoy 2 hobbies that to me are really filled with anxiety, and that's probably why I don't like them. And that's watching live sports and video games, because both of them make me very anxious.
Because you can't control them, right? You can't control video games.
That you can turn it off. You can also turn off the TV. But yeah, I tend to like to not have more anxiety in my life, because life is, and I don't struggle with a lot of anxiety, but work can kind of drive you nuts sometimes. So why have a hobby that's at some point going to super piss you off? So that's why I stay away from video games, except for the Lego games, which to me are very soothing, because the characters build things, and then you can have an ice cream and whatever it is. But this looks fantastic. Apart from and. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I read a headline. The guy voicing Indy, isn't it the same guy who voices Joel in The Last of Us?
Correct. Troy Baker. He is a fantastic voice actor. He's done many things. They are using a likeness of Harrison Ford from that period. He doesn't look exactly like him, which I really like.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's only so much that they can do, even with these very high-end AAA video games, as they call them, the ones that are really high-end, that it can only look so uncanny valley-ish, like Tarkin and Rogue One, but hopefully always improving, right? Always improving and always looking a little bit more human until it looks a little too human, I guess. But yeah, this is great. And then again, your button on this is, should it inspire TV and films? And we've talked about this many, many times.
Yes, we have.
I would imagine that our response would be fairly similar, and it would be not with Harrison Ford. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Like I said, and it was funny over the holidays. I bought, because it was on sale at Vudu. I've mentioned this before, I pick up movie packs and stuff, or like little deals, because I have a wish list on Vudu Fandango. And I picked up a 6 or 7 movie pack of the Sean Connery James Bond. Absolutely love them. There's no doubt that the movies don't hold up. I mean, in Thunderball, he did surgery to make himself Japanese, so that does not hold up. My point being that James Bond has been around since 1962, and it's been cast and recast.
And it didn't stop with Sean Connery, right?
And it didn't. They didn't have to trot out Sean Connery until the day he died to play old James Bond. They kept the core of the character. It's like in we dubbed this week's Code 47, which you may have listened to by the time this came out. We dubbed it Star Trek's Batman, Mr. Spock. Because Spock has been played by a variety of different actors. So it's the same thing. Why is Indiana Jones not played by a different actor? They did it with Han Solo. A lot of people hated it.
Superman.
Maybe that's why they're like, well, people hated Alden as Han Solo, so we can't do the same thing with Indiana Jones. It's a huge missed opportunity to find a different way to say, okay, well, Indy also did, push it further back. Here's Indy in the 20s when he's doing his jazzman stuff in Chicago, or give us the World War II Indy movie that they tried to do with the, CGI de-aging fest that was, part of the movie that failed last summer. I don't know. But yeah, like a TV, like a string of miniseries, like the old Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, that was the recasting they did. And I thought that was popular. So it makes me wonder why it fell off. That was also in the early 90s, and then nothing, which is why Indiana Jones probably lost its popularity, because it fell out of the zeitgeist for an entire generation.
And they didn't. And I think it's called franchise care. Really is really the whole part of it. Indiana Jones, like I said, has not had consistent video games, hasn't had consistent comic books, novels, TV series, or anything to really keep you engaged, get new audiences over time. They've had gaps of how many years between films? I mean, we're talking like a decade.
10, 15, 20. Yeah.
That is not how you build up a franchise. That's not how you protect and love it.
Right.
Action figures, collectibles.
Say what you will about Star Wars. Yes, they had that big gap, but since 1999, we haven't really been without Star Wars. There's always been something, and again, the merch is a big part of it, and
novels,
it's the reason that
comics,
like it or lump it, they do keep that franchise in your face. If it's and even in the community, like the 501st, which is the Lucasfilm approved costuming group, does officially license at events at local baseball games. And I know that here in Grand Rapids, they do our local hockey team. That's coming up in a few weeks. And I know all those people who are involved in that, but it keeps people thinking about, I love Baby Yoda, or I love Chewbacca, or Boba Fett, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I know I called him Baby Yoda, but you know what? You knew what I was talking about, didn't you?
Child.
The Grogu, or I have and always will call him Greggy. Because the week that episode was on, April and I were out, we were like walking out of a Meijer or something and talking about Mando. And I said, what was his name again that they gave him? Was it was Greg or Greggy? No, it was Grogu. Oh, I like Greggy better. So it's always been, he's Greggy. He's my Greggy.
Yeah. So, we said, it should inspire, the game should inspire the future of Indiana Jones. And I would say at this point, the easiest thing you could probably do is hire the animation team from What If, get this voice actor. Boom. And I don't want What If Indiana Jones tales. I just want Indiana Jones tales. Now, whether they're canon or not, I could give two craps, because they're all about like James Bond. Do we even say, is that canon to whatever? No, he's just having a good time.
He's just a dude. Yeah. And you just think about it. They're all different worlds in the multiverse, or Indiana Jones or James Bond is simply a code name and they give it to some dude. You know what I mean? Where Indiana Jones could just be, they would have a fine time probably adapting those novels from the 90s. Be like, all right, we're making The Fate of Atlantis, and it's a 3-part animated whatever, airing over 3 weeks, and something.
I've solved it, Charlie.
Oh, please.
Because the dog's name was Indiana, so it's going to be it's going to be with the dog.
Oh, Indiana Jones, but really Indiana Jones. Or they could flip the script and he has a pet who's a dude named Henry Jones Jr. So it then becomes the reverse of Han Solo.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. And then you can't understand what the human is saying.
How do you recast that dog? Wait, what's the dog, guys? You can't recast it. Oh my God, what are you gonna do?
That dog's got an iron cast contract for his likeness rights. It's terrible. Does
Harrison Ford? I mean, he's got kids, right? Can we just cast one of them?
He does, but they're not in the business. Yeah,
never stopped Harrison Ford.
Yeah. That's right. He was carpenter when he got hired. Right. He built a door frame for George Lucas, and he said, "You know what? I think you should be a movie star.
Based on your carpentry skills, you'd be a great actor."
Oh, I really do like the way you frame that top part of the door. I think you should have a career as a multi-million-dollar actor.
Did Shakespeare inspire that door? Of course it did.
There you go. Absolutely. All right, moving on. What do you got here? R.L. Stine confirms new Fear Street film is on the way from Netflix. Netflix just still continues to piss me off because I told you no, and I'll tell you why. And it's not because of anything they make. It's because of the fact that I can't watch it when I'm on the road. Didn't I tell you about this? I have to take my travel Roku. I have to plug it in at home so it synchronizes the IP address, and then I can use it on the road. But I have to do that every week or so. So I've never done it because my mother doesn't
seem to have that problem with Netflix with my account.
No, not the account, the device. Because if I'm in a hotel room in Flint and I go to Netflix, it said, "Well, you're not at your home address, so the only way that we can recognize this device."
Tablet, then.
Yeah, but you know what, Todd? It's the principle of the thing. It's the principle. Well, it pisses me because Netflix I love watching stand up, and all of the good stand up is on Netflix because those are the original productions they do. So it kind of drives me nuts. But anyway. Okay, R.L. Stine, not my wheelhouse, so you go right ahead. Sure.
So, Charlie, if you remember, we really enjoyed that Fear Street trilogy. It was 94, 78, 1666. So
yeah.
So it was really neat because it was like standalone movies, but they're all connected. They were released like a month apart or something like that. I forgot when they released them, but it was really cool. Really loved the series. And it's basically Fear Street was a series that R.L. Stine did. It was like a grown-up, like Goosebumps for like the high school stuff. Right. And so apparently they did really well. And there's a ton of books in the Fear Street series that are all a little bit different. That they're looking to develop a new book series or new movie based on the series called The Prom Queen. And R.L. Stine is once again involved. There's actually, if you go down the link, there's a picture of the cover, and it said she was drop dead beautiful. And there's a picture of looking in the mirror. Yeah,
that's my high school prom date. No, I take that back. She was a very nice girl. And she did not look like a skeleton face, but she did not have a tiara. So, I want to hear. Maybe I'll Todd this book title. I think it's the tiara that is the source of her power. And so potentially within the course of this book, the only way to stop her from absorbing souls or whatever is to destroy the tiara. I don't know. You know what? At me on that one, folks.
It's like Friday the 13th, the series where it was like cursed objects. Yeah.
Yes, that is a cursed object. So this is fun. Yeah, it wasn't one of those. I'm trying to remember. Wasn't one of those 3 Fear Street movies? There was a shootout in a supermarket and somebody's head went through like a deli slicer or something.
It was like a bread slicer. Yeah, it was like that. Was gross. It was like that was more grotesque than I expected.
That was a little bit more than I was really hoping for. So so this is a standalone film based on. It would be based on this or just the Prom
based
Queen.
On the Prom Queen, in the Fear Street series. So I could see this being evergreen where they could pick another book, develop and have a good time. And Netflix has done some really good horror stuff. So I don't know when this would occur, but once again, horror films don't take that long. So this could be out next year.
They could roll on this and it could be, even at the end of this year. Who knows? I mean, let's say they're doing it right now. You never know. But could be. So cool. Yeah, I dig that very much. I dig it. All right, what else we got going on? Oh, he's not fat. He was born this way. Remake of The Blob. Now, was the last Blob came out in 1958? Was the first one that I'm aware of?
Yeah, there was 91. I think 91.
88. Came out in 88.
Okay.
And Kevin Dillon was the star, if I'm not mistaken, of that one.
Yeah, highly regarded too. Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, he was the black leather jacket and a huge mullet. That's what I remember about his character in that. Larry Hagman made a sequel to the film. Like the Larry Hagman made a sequel to the film in 72 called Beware the Blob.
Know that.
Before a super gory and great remake hit theaters in 88, in which the pink Blob turned into a biological weapon created by the military. Well, you know what? Who else is going to create it? Come on now. But yeah, that's great. And it's funny because no horror movie really made in this day and age is likely to be as grisly and horrifying as something that came out in the 80s. Let's face it. It's just, think about any horror movie you've seen in the last 10 years versus like The Thing or something like this. You know what I mean? It'll be scary, but it's not going to be like, it's not going to be like putting somebody's head through a bread slicer.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things I remember seeing the Blob, and I thought it was really interesting because the way they used the Blob, like it had people inside it. You could see him and they looked horrified.
Oh, some dude, he was all, he caught his face. It was like the Sarlacc. But like somebody was like his half of his face was gone. He was like, but he was like caught in a rictus at the time of death. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, the person behind this is David Bruckner. He did that Hellraiser reboot that we did not like.
Yeah. And come to realize I hadn't even seen the original, and I was like, this remake doesn't do anything but make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, the original Hellraiser, holy crap, that's quite the movie.
Yeah.
But he also did The Ritual and The Night House. So David Goyer is going to be involved with this.
Night House is it all like Roadhouse? Night House.
It is. Yes. We only talk about it at night. This could be good. I mean, the Blob is something I said. It's been how long? Almost 40 plus years. 40 more.
Yeah. And how can you really go wrong? It's it's like one of my favorite Stephen King films, and they subsequently made it into a show, is The Mist. And it's like, it doesn't sound scary, but they made that movie really scary. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't the mist that was dangerous. It was because there was a mist. There was a bunch of friggin' art. No, there were creatures from another dimension.
I've never seen it.
Thanks to once again the U.S. Army. Oh, bro, it's by Frank Darabont. Before The Walking Dead. Because again, what really made The Walking Dead great early on was him, but then there was all that controversy and got let go. And then The Walking Dead became, in a lot of ways, very also ran. But as far as the really tight scripting and good concept, Frank Darabont was the guy, I think, early on that show. But yeah, I would recommend that one. It's on my Fandango. Okay. I'm just saying. Go check it out. I think you'll like it. Yeah. The end of the movie, because when April and I watch it, we're on a Stephen King kick several months ago. And she was like, I love that movie, but they changed the ending from the book, and the ending is brutal to watch. And it's not what you would think. It is not. So
the ending of the book is
of the movie correct. Or so I'm told.
Oh,
yeah, but no, go. You know what? There you go. You like to give me homework. Boom, gave you homework. Go watch that movie.
Okay, so this will be probably on. This is a Warner Brothers development, so it would most likely be
Max.
Probably at theaters first, and then going to Max after that.
Gotcha. Good deal. And again, we're just talking about horror, so again, could be out next year. Might have a little bit more CGI in it though, because the creature itself. So yeah, maybe push that out. So, Todd, what a bummer that our own Madam Webb is going back in time. They're turning it into a prequel, Todd. What's up with that? So
this is so Madam Web is essentially going to be a lot like Captain Marvel, where Captain Marvel took place in the 90s. The Madam Web film is going to be taking place in 2003. Charlie, it was our glory days,
like the Last of Us, because The Last of Us, the beginning of it in the television series took place in 2003 because it was a 20-year gap. I'm having some mixed feelings about this one because again, it's the Spumco, which still defies logic to me, that you have a franchise built around Spider-Man, but he's not in it. But you've got a trio of ladies, powerhouse of actors. Got Sydney Sweeney, who they should call her Sydney Swooney. That girl just overtakes me. I really want to believe that they can turn a corner, but nothing they produce so far is good at all. So naturally, it kind of sets the bar kind of low. Now, Todd, are we going to knock out a spoiler cast about this one? Are we going to go see this right away?
You know what? I mean, it doesn't look horrible. It looks like it's going to be generic.
Generic sounds perfect.
That seems to be their wheelhouse. Pretty generic to lame and not really.
But all of their stuff has been really bad. The Venom movies were really bad. Morbius was really bad. So, I mean, can there be a morning after, as the old song goes? I mean, can there be a time that they turn it around?
It's a dead zone, Charlie. What else are you gonna do? It's a Valentine's movie, but you don't have to go to Valentine's for it. You can watch the weekend after Valentine's, and
I mean, yeah, I don't think that this is the movie that it's in April doesn't really care about Valentine's Day, so what? But still,
you can make it special by taking her to Madam Web.
Oh, there you go. Yes. Oh, honey, Madam Web is a part of our team. Yeah. But so this is set in 2003, and I love the headline. If we don't get a Linkin Park or Nickelback needle drop, then what are we doing here?
Exactly.
Look at this moo.
What were we wearing in 2003? I don't think anything that interesting, to be honest.
Probably very similar. Todd, you're wearing a long sleeve ringer tee right now? Or
yeah, baseball. I'm wearing a baseball. I'm wearing my Hellfire Club baseball shirt.
And I'm wearing our SFU logo tee, which can be found on our T Public store. Wink, wink, wink. Notes in the show notes. Link in the show notes, I should say.
I'm guessing girls were wearing shrugs at the time. A lot of those ponchos or whatever
this was past the time they were wearing the big bell-bottom jeans.
Yeah, no wide leg jeans. Yeah,
yeah,
going
exactly.
back to straight leg. Were they doing like high waists and mom jeans things? I don't know.
I'm not a woman. I'm a mom.
Well, this is a fun bit right here, Charlie. It says the film was originally set in the 90s, where we learned this was set in the world of the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man movies. But Snyder claims Sony then decided to change over to Tom Holland's Peter Parker, then axed the 90s out of the film entirely. This was a reshoot. So if true, it paints the film's existence in even weirder light than before. And apparently Adam Scott is rumored to be playing a young Ben Parker in this too.
So that makes sense, because again, the Tom Holland Spider-Man spared us the misery of, well, let's tell the origin again, because you just knew. So by the time we meet the Tom Holland Spider-Man in Civil War, in that brief bit where Tony Stark goes to meet him, and he merely alludes to the fact that I've had these powers for 6 months and yada, yada, yada. Then we get into Spider-Man Homecoming, where he reveals what's going on with it with his best, but I want to say Genki, because they pattern Ned after Genki in the Ultimate Spider-Man. But he's explaining to Ned his origin, but he doesn't go on to say blah, 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 my uncle got killed or this and that. So clearly with this, so are they going to have a de-aged Marissa Tomei, or is Aunt May not going to be a factor? I mean, I don't know. With that, they could then turn around and have a more traditional Madam Web. Yeah. But I mean, and again, this character is based on Julia Carpenter, who was the Spider-Woman from first saw her in Secret Wars. She was in the West Coast Avengers after that. She then became Madam Web because she acquired the powers and stuff, but she wasn't an old lady sitting in a chair. She was just someone with psychic powers and all this different stuff.
Grandma Web. That's what we need.
And then the other three super sexy ladies, first of which would be Sydney Sweeney. Excuse me a second. I'm just kidding. And then another one of them is... Isabella Merced, the actress whose career is taken off. And who's the third one? Because there's four of them.
I think it's Spider-Woman, isn't it?
Well, no. Oh, and I was trying to think of the actress, but no, it's like Aranya and Spider or something or other. Anyway, I will admit, I will admit that I will go see this. I would
Morbiously curious.
Morbiously curious. Oh. Yes. I see what you did there. Well, I am, just because of my own, deep love and affection for all things Spider-Man, but then coupled with the fact that
Charlie, you saw Snake Eyes, so at that point, I mean, everything's on the table.
Like I said, that's our next feature on our Patreon segment of A Bad Trip to the Movies with the Cardins is Snake Eyes. We'll be doing that, I think, in April. So look for that.
The Nicolas Cage film, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. No, it's a merging of the two.
So
anyway,
with Storm Shadow. Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, and Todd, we both have to see this because, again, we have to support financially Madam Web, because that money comes back to us. And speaking of money coming back to us, as the news comes to an end, friends, please forgive us for this brief commercial interruption.
Hey, Secret Friends Unite, let me tell you about Zencastr. We use them for our show, and now they're supporting us. Zencastr is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. It's the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. Provides high-quality audio and video podcast production and hosting. With a full suite of professional tools, podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio-quality content, all from one dashboard. Being a creator has never been easier. And we chose Zencastr because of the ease of use, high quality output, and it makes it super easy for our guests to come on. We had multiple solutions we tried before, and Zencastr has just been the best fit for us. Why Zencastr? It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sounds and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. Have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you're interested in making an easy, high-quality podcast just with the click of a browser button, go to zencastr.com/SFU and use our code SFU, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experience I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Now back to the show.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting in the Geek Easy, cover band's playing, drinks are poured, and we are ready to get our nerd on. So this week, not watching a lot, because I've been watching a lot of football and playing a lot of games, but a new animated series has dropped on Fox, Animation Domination.
Oh, yeah. I think I heard about this.
Yeah, it's called Grimsburg. Now, John Hamm basically is the lead actor in this. He plays Marvin Flute. He is a kind of a washed-up detective. He previously was the greatest detective, and he lives in a fictional town of Grimsburg and goes on cases. So it's that kind of case of the week. His partner is a part cyborg. He has an ex-wife played by
don't we all?
By Erin Hayes. She was his ex-wife who was raised by bears. Very random.
Sure, why not?
His son Stan Flute.
I was always pretty sure my ex-wife was raised by wolves, but
his son Stan Flute is Rachel Dratch.
Dratch.
Yeah, Kevin Michael Richardson, famous voice actor, plays Detective Greg Summers, who is a cyborg, and Alan Tudyk is Dr. Rufus Pentos. Basically, it's Marvin's former music teacher turned nemesis. So it's kind of like Hannibal, and then he plays Mr. Flesh, Stan's imaginary friend, who is a skeleton.
Oh my god!
Yes, yeah. So, it's really there's only one episode. So, episode out first. It came out in the beginning of January, but it's because of playoffs and things like that. They don't have a draft anymore. But it's a funny show. I'm sure it'll grow on me. It'll the characters will have their things with most like animated series. Takes a while to.
Right.
So far so good. I mean, nothing like immediately stands out. It's goofy. Yeah. It's silly. John Hamm's pretty good. You can kind of tell it's John Hamm, but you kind of can't. So he's probably doing a good job of changing his voice a little bit.
That's not bad. Yeah. That's not bad, because otherwise it would probably stand the reputation of being a bit stale if it was just like, I'm John Hamm. It's like Will Smith. It's like what you've always said about Will Smith. He's just Will Smith in everything he does. So it's like, it's with not
horses, with aliens, with
exactly. What was your line from Wild Wild West? Get off your busted ass horse. Welcome to Earth.
Welcome to Utah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's on Hulu.
Come on. Nobody's welcome in Utah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's on Hulu. So check it out. Hopefully we'll get probably get 8 episodes, assuming it gets renewed, maybe more seasons. So gotcha. That is my take on the show. I did watch something you also watched, so we can jam on that together.
Oh, very good. Well, I have a brief kind of tag back. I talked in the last couple episodes about how I'm kind of on a Star Wars kick. I bounce between my various kicks. G.I. Joe to Star Wars. I'm always watching Star Trek, obviously, because we do the show. And then back to Marvel again. So right now I'm on a Star Wars kick, even though there's no new stuff on. Because, I watched, the end of Mando season 2, because to me, Luke Skywalker chopping up a bunch of droids is kind of where it's at. That led me, I watched the rest of Mando. I watched a bit of the Mando that was within the Book of Boba Fett, and we plowed right through it. And then I said, you know what? I'll give Book of Boba Fett another stab, because we all really thought, why did they make this show? You and I bitched about it. I bitched about it with Mark over on Holocron. But I thought, you know what? It's been 2 years since that show came out. That show came out at the end of 21. And it was, it did its run basically this time back in 2022. So I thought I'd already watched the last 3. So I'll watch the first 5, I think, or 4 or 5. I can't remember how many episodes there were total. And just see if I get any more out of it. And, it kicks off that, here, we knew that, at that last scene of Mando, that Boba decided to show up and kill off the heir apparent to Jabba's fortune, which was big fat Bib Fortuna, and he took over. And you're like, okay, where's this going to go from here? And the series starts off that he's sitting in his back to tank because he was all scarred up and stuff from living in the Sarlacc and whatever, and he's dreaming about his life, and you see him get out of the Sarlacc, and then he gets mugged by Jawas in his sleep, which I never understood. They came up and stole all this shit off of him, and he's just like, I'm just chilling. I'm glad they even left him. What if they took his jumpsuit too? Just be laying there naked, no big deal. Just, his nuts burning in the sun. Glad that didn't happen. Didn't need to see it. No offense to Mira Morrison. But then, it's, you follow his journey with the getting, he gets taken by the Tuscans and they turn him into a slave, but then he, earns his freedom by, beating up this Ray Harryhausen creature. And, because I think that one of the big struggles of the series is figuring out, why is he doing any of this? Why does he want to be a crime lord if he's not a crime lord? And I felt, while it's still not great, I'm not going to say, oh my God, it completely changed my mind about it. Now it's my favorite thing. I at least felt like watching this, I understood a bit more about his motivation, because, he was this big bad guy, and then he got stripped down to nothing. He had nothing left. Then he was a slave and getting the shit beaten out of him all the time. Then, he earned his place with the Tuscans, and they were his family. Then they got killed off. And then he finally just says, hey, organized crime sucks. But much like my own experience with the cosplay community, where the only way to control the madness is to basically run it yourself. I started a fan club. There's some cosplay involved, and we keep the drama out of it pretty much. I feel like my journey with cosplay is Boba Fett's journey to the show. The only way he figured that he could keep things on an even keel was to be the benevolent good guy that didn't allow any drama. So that's what I got out of it. I don't know. It's weird. Again, I'm not saying I pulled a 180 on this, but I pulled maybe like 55 degrees out of that 180. It pulled me back in another direction. So I understand it a bit more, and I like it a bit more than I used to. So I'm not saying, as we say with most things on the show, your mileage may vary. So you may already love it. I respect that. You may never be able to watch again, like Todd, who will never watch it again. I can absolutely guarantee it, unless somebody is like holding a knife. I
watched the pitch meeting, Charlie, and that reminded me of all the things I didn't want to relive.
And again, I think the fact that that nearly a third of the season is taken up by a story that doesn't involve Boba at all, when they stuck Mando in there with Grogu and Luke and Ahsoka, it's like, I thought that, I still find that unforgivable. That was poor form. I didn't care for that. But it's funny, I watched that part of it in context between Mando's seasons 2 and 3. And then I watched all of Mando season 3 and liked it a little bit better than I did the first time, but not a lot. So breaking Boba Fett up into that first 5 episodes gave me a little bit more perspective, made me like it a little bit more. So you know what? I guess if there's a moral to the story, sometimes with time, and just like in life in general, time heals all wounds. If the Book of Boba Fett hurt you, you might be entitled to compensation. No, I'm just kidding. It's possible that if you give it another shot and maybe think about it in a different way, you might enjoy it somewhat differently. That's what I'm going to throw out there. Doesn't apply to Todd. There's no way he'd ever enjoy it. I understand. That's fair. But you know what? People out there, give it another crack. Who knows? Might be all right for you.
Take some crack. and then watch it again.
Well, like that lizard that went into Boba Fett's brain.
Yeah,
you just need one of those.
That was great. That was amazing.
That was good stuff. Absolutely.
I need a Vision Quest in every movie.
I do, especially lizard induced. There's no doubt about it. All right, so you and I both watch. April and I are huge fans of the Colbert Report. Mm-hmm. No, it's not the Colbert Report. It's the Late Night with Stephen Colbert because I love him. Usually we watch the first half because the interviews get kind of boring, but we watch his plug at the beginning. And about 2 months ago, he had comedian Taylor Tomlinson on. I love Taylor Tomlinson. Saw her live here in concert in Grand Rapids last year. Had enjoyed both of her Netflix specials. And he brought her on and he said, hey, my news is that we're bringing back At Midnight, or we're going to be calling it After Midnight, which was a great show with the now... Is Chris Hardwick canceled? Does he still do things? Because I knew that he
was a voice actor in Crepopolis. So, and he's in this show called Bar Something or Other. It's
Bar Something or Other. That is a
Barcade, Barpocalypse or something like where they play games at a bar. It's so dumb, but he's on that.
Okay. Yeah, because he was in this whole thing. Oh, his ex-girlfriend said he was abusive, but there was no proof, but it kind of destroyed his career anyway, or something. Wasn't it something like that? I don't know. Yeah. I'm not trying to make light of it. I feel like I remember that ultimately the case, there wasn't a legal case, but in the court of public opinion, it kind of killed him, or it hurt his career without a doubt. So I don't know. I'm not going to comment on that. But anyway, that was a show that I feel like was on Comedy Central, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer. But I feel like April and I watched.
People watch Comedy Central?
Yeah, people watching comedy when there were cable networks. I feel like April and I watched it together, but I could be wrong. So within the last 10 years. But anyway, she announced that we're rekindling this show. It's going to air after this show that I'm on, the Late Night Show with Colbert, and it's going to be in early January. So cool. I'm excited. They're bringing it back. Monday was the Emmys. So it started on Tuesday of this past week. So essentially a week ago if you're listening to this when it comes out. And the first night's guest had Whitney Cummings was one of the guests. Mm-hmm. I adore her. She just had a baby, but she looks fantastic. And the other two guests, now I'm already forgetting.
Wrongholder and then
awesome dude.
An Indian comic. Can't remember her name.
Oh, yeah. Pavna or some such. Anyway, the first night, to me, I was laughing. I was having a fun time. And I know there were 3. I'm kind of drawing a blank on the second one. The third night, I thought, really fell flat. I don't know. Have you watched all 3?
I only watched the first one, but that's kind of true about that show in general. It all depends on the comics. Like it's super dependent because they bill it as a rekindling of the old show, which is basically like watch this internet clip and heckle it or make comments about it or have fun with it. And yeah, I thought that first night was a slam dunk. The second night, like I said, I'm just not clicking with who was on it, but I just remember the third night. They had some folks I didn't know. And one of the comics in particular, you could just really tell it wasn't, even Taylor seemed uncomfortable. It just really wasn't clicking. So it makes, and then I read a headline of some wag who said, well, it's very uninspired, whatever. People are going to say that stuff. So I don't know. But again, judging by that first episode, which clearly you watched as well, when you have a cast, you have a guest cast that's working for that particular episode, it really clicks. But that third episode, I feel like it was the third episode, it really crashed for me. So I won't say it makes me fearful. Are they so 1 for 3, or would you say they're 2 for 3?
You know what? It's kind of like they're 1 up, 1 down, and then I would have to look it up I don't even remember the second episode, so it's kind of like a nil. So I would call it a tie because the third episode, the middle episode, I just don't remember. But again, like I said, when I get up in the morning, whether I'm home or I'm on the road, I watch Colbert. I watch The Daily Show, but it's not back yet, which is kind of frustrating.
No, so it's random host again, right?
No, it's just not on. It hasn't been on since the middle of December.
Okay.
So I don't know what's going on with that. Even though they won an Emmy or they were up for an Emmy, like there was a post on one of their social medias that look, we won an Emmy, and I went into the comments, when's the show coming back? Because I want to know. I've loved The Daily Show since we were in college. Todd, you and I watched that together. So yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen with this. I hope it finds an audience. I love Taylor. I'm happy for her success. But it could fall into the same pitfall of the original show. And of course, with nostalgia goggles on, I could say, oh, the old show was always great. I'm sure it wasn't always great. I'm sure they had terrible episodes with bad contestants, as it were. Because it's a combination of this, basically internet spoofery, and then Taylor talking to her contestants or her guest stars about what they do. And it doesn't seem like it's much of the second one, but that's okay too. I mean, podcasts are like that too. You listen to a podcast where, let's say it's two stand-up comedians, one will throw to the other one and said, hey, Todd, you got some tour dates coming up. It's like, yeah, I'm in Tacoma, Washington on blah, blah, blah. So it's that kind of thing.
I think it's also because the original At Midnight was only half hour. This is like an hour long. I think that's...
Is it really? I felt like it was going on really long.
Yeah.
But it's so early in the morning, it's not like I'm looking at my watch and trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's just way too long. It needs to be condensed. I know they have to fill the time, but...
Yeah.
And, maybe it should be half and half. Maybe like, let's do this part, and then the second part is maybe interviews or something. I don't know. I don't know if that's interesting, or maybe just stand-up.
It just, do an interview. This sounds like that would break up any kind of flow they might have. So I don't know that would click, but you don't know. So, I won't say I'm fearful that it won't make it. I don't know. I don't know how long the original was on or what killed it. I don't know. Maybe the whole controversy with Hardwick is what killed it. I have no idea. I just don't really recall.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the first week, right? So I know like when any like talk show host, the first week is always like, or even the first year is like funky. It doesn't always feel right. So give him some time, give him, her, also she was fine. Yeah. I think she laughed too much sometimes.
Yeah. I noticed that. Yeah, I noticed that too. Is that she has